All right, I'm going to attempt to use the microphone here and hopes that everyone can hear. Um, Good morning, everybody. It's good to see all of you. I'm going to call the meeting of the State Board of Canvassers to order. And to kick things off, I want to let the record reflect that in addition to myself, the Secretary of State, I have Julie Ellsworth, our State Treasurer, and Brandon Wolf, our State Controller. The three of us make up the State Board of Canvassers. And really, to start off, this is by far and away the largest audience there has ever possibly been for a State Board of Canvassers meeting. I have attended them myself, and there's usually like me and there was Betsy Russell, maybe one other person in the past. It was usually in the Secretary of State's conference room. These two have done it many times, so that as you can see the nods, they can attest. It is usually in a small room. And so when I said, how about we do it this time with all of the county clerks and do it outside of Boise, they were kind enough to indulge me. So thank you, Madam Treasurer and Mr. Controller, for doing so. I think as somebody who has worked in the election space for so many years, whether it's, helping train poll workers to running elections in Ada County with Trent and the team, it's neat to see all of our work come to the kind of culmination, which is where this is. Everyone has here in the room, all the county clerks throughout the room have done their county canvasses. That's one of the things that we're going to review here as we go over everything. But now we are doing the state canvas. So for those who are not familiar with this process, not familiar with the State Board of Canvassers, our role is to certify the election results for the 2024 primary election that just occurred on May 21st. And so a couple of the things we're going to go over just in terms of the agenda for today is we're going to go over our audits. In 2022, the state implemented post-election audits to review the accuracy and to build confidence in our elections. And we've just finished completing those audits over the past week. So we're going to give a presentation on those and just recognize all those counties that participated in the audits. Then, as expected, we're going to go over the results of the election and the full canvas. We've got members from our team to present on that, and we will finish by certifying the results. We'll talk more about that as we get into it, but thank you for making the trip over here. I can tell you just chatting in the hall, and I think you guys each got to have these conversations. It's neat to do something official for the state outside of Boise. We do so much in the capital. It really is cool to be here in Eastern Idaho. For those watching online, we are in Idaho Falls conducting the State Board of Canvass. So anytime we have the opportunity to do something official, it's great to do here. Before we get started with the presentations, is there anything either of you want to say? Okay. Yeah, no, thank you guys for making the trip. All right, we're going to get things started because we do have a lot of information to cover here in the time that we've got. And so I'm going to have Dan Lee come up to the podium. Dan, are you ready? And what we're going to start with is to just go over the post-election audits. And Dan has shared in your binders, Mr. Controller and Treasurer, are the audit reports. So this is and I think this time it's a more detailed overview of the audits in terms of, this is a summary in terms of the overall audit report, and Dan's going to go over that. So Dan, give me a second to get you set up. Give me a second to share.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the State Board of Canvassers and clerks. My name is Daniel Lee, and I'm the voting system specialist from the Secretary of State's office. Thank you for joining us today for the presentation of the May 2024 post-election audit report. Before we dive into the report, we need to extend a special thanks to the 8 counties that were selected for this audit. We appreciate your professionalism and hospitality. A special thanks to Jason Dixon from Bannock County, Glenda Poston from Boundary County, Frank Oakbaum from Canyon County, Joe Larson, Tasha, Abby Mace from Freeman County, Kim Muir from Madison County, Lindsay Bratcher from Paya County, and Doug Miller from Valley. And all the county election administrators who helped around the audit. For us, our work on the audit has been since earlier this spring with the preparation and issuance of audit directive 2024-3. The actual selection, and audit occurred pursuant to Idaho 34-1203 A, upon the completion of the county canvass for the 2024 primary election. As I'm sure you each recall, on May 28th, 8 counties across the state and certain precincts within them were selected at random. In this audit process, we selected 42 of the 44 counties, since 2 counties, Bingham and Butte, were exempt due to count following. In the future, counties with less than 25,000 registered voters will, once audited, be from the selection process until all counties under that threshold have been audited. This is to ensure that we eventually reach all counties throughout the state. Counties with 25,000 or more registered voters will continue to be eligible for audit in the future due to their respective size and the number of votes cast in these counties. Audit teams of 4 or more, led by the secretary, by the staff from the Secretary of State's office, traveled to each county selected for audit. One of the changes we made this cycle is that we reached out to CPAs and the Association of Government Accountants to find accountants willing to assist with the audits. Based on the feedback received from those involved with the prior audits, this seemed to help the process. At each county, our audit consisted of hand counts and ballot reconciliation from different legislative and congressional races across the state. We also compared the total ballots cast based on the county canvass reports to the total ballots audited at the precinct level. Then the number of ballots audited was compared to the number of voters who were reported as having voted in poll books or voter registration systems. What did we find? Our audit revealed that the voting systems in all 8 counties performed well. Our handwritten ones confirmed the accuracy of the machine counts and no significant differences found. So we'll go ahead and kind of go through each county specifically. So we'll start the specific level result. For Bannock County, the contest audited with the United States. 2 total ballots reported in audit 2,264. Total ballots audited 2,265. Differences: 1 extra ballot due to down 62. Boundary County, the contest that was audited, state Senate race, legislative district 1. Total ballots audited 2,039. The only differences we found was that 9 received ballots without signing paper poll books. Canyon County, we audited the race, the United States Representative Congressional District 1. Total ballots reported and audited was 4,870. Differences found: 1 overcounted ballot in precinct 4613 due to voter error on the ballot. 1 undercounted ballot in precinct 2411 due to a ballot being cast in the wrong precinct. Due to there being an over and an under, those 2 essentially cancel each other out. Cassia County. In Cassia County, we audited State Representative CB District 27 race. Total ballots reported and audited was 2,138. No differences found. Fremont County, the audited race was State Representative CB Legislative District 31. Total ballots reported 2,127. Total ballots audited 2,026. Differences: 1 ballot was under voter error. Madison County. In Madison County, we audited State Representative CB Legislative District 34. Total ballots reported and audited 2,257. No differences found. Fayette County, contest rate audited State Senator Legislative District 9. Total ballots reported and 2,143. Differences found: additional check-ins in precinct 4 and 6 due to unspoiled check-ins. 2 fewer check-ins in precinct Valley County. Contest audited state representative CE legislative district 8. Total ballots reported 1,061. Total reported. Total ballots audited 2,865. Differences: 4 additional ballots were counted during the hand counting process. In the audit report, you will see that we made some recommendations for the specific counties based on our observations. In some instances, we had no recommendations. For those we did, there were 2 common themes. The first was surrounding the organization, boxing, and logging of ballots. The other related to poll worker training and emphasized the importance of things like signatures and documentation of polls. The 2024 primary election audit demonstrates Idaho's commitment to maintaining the integrity and transparency of its electoral process. The findings from this audit reinforce the reliability of our voting systems and the processes while highlighting areas for improvement. The Secretary of State's office and the clerks open, honest, and elections. By continuing these post-election audits, the office aims to bolster public confidence, ensure that every Idaho's vote is accurately counted. Thank you, board officers. I have to stand for your questions that you may have.
Can you bring the mic? So
Because I have a really soft voice.
Sure. Hold it close.
Okay. Like a singer. Okay, my question is on page 11. You said you tallied it based on the voter intent. What metric do you use to discern what the voter intent is?
Yep.
Maybe staying closer so people
Yeah.
online can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
No, you're.
So when it comes to voter intent, the metric we use, across the state, we're looking for, very specifically, we're looking for different patterns on the ballot. And we're looking for if that voter stays consistent on the ballot.
So I have a follow-up on that.
Yes.
Do you have that metric?
That's gonna be a good question.
No, just to give you, we have some general guidelines. We don't have as specific, so I'll give you an example. State of Washington has a document reviewed. I can tell you, for example, I don't know the situation. I reviewed the ballot in Canyon County. And in that instance, the mark was a very small mark in this case, it was a box based on the ballot style. It was consistent based on the review of the auditors. They could say, oh, this clearly was the voters portion, but the way that the machines read is you have to have a certain number of pixels. It's why the instructions encourage people to fill in. And so this is one of those where we saw it. But again, we saw very rare instances where that was an issue.
Do you something so that you can support here these types of things? I know that they're always fuzzy area, but is there anything?
We do statutorily, it's voter intent, and it is subjective. That's where we rely on the auditors because the subjective nature. And that's actually a really good question, Madam Chair, because when we review it, the auditors make the finding based on looking at it. And it is most of us, and I can say this is true across the board, when we fill out a ballot, we fill in the oval or the box completely. But there are, a good example is you have a box that is marked, and the reason it's marked is not because someone put a vote in there, but it's because they wrote their manifesto on the front of their ballot. Or people will circle boxes, or we had one ballot that was audited where they marked the first. So for the first race, they marked the vote properly, and every other race, they marked a mark off to the side. And my favorite story to share is we had a voter once in Ada County while I was clerk, where they took an X-Acto knife and cut out their votes. And so, unfortunately, not all voters participate the way the instructions indicate.
Yeah. It's more for Daniel.
So either or.
Recently read the 1274 Senate bill and what the language says. I guess from the standpoint, do you feel your part from the Secretary of State's office that that threshold is met from this audit for the integrity and the results of what you found in these 8 counties was sufficient and the overall conclusion of what you feel there.
Yeah, I think the purpose of this is to both bolster confidence in our elections. And so when you look at these results and you see the findings, I will say there's one notable thing that you can't see, but you guys have seen the audit reports in the past. So if you go back to the 2022 election cycle, it was very evident through these audits. There were some counties, so examples I can think of at the moment, Payette County, Madison County, Bannock County, who had been through the audits previously. And it is very evident in going back that they were lessons learned from the prior audits and that the organization and the structure, you could see that. And I think that holds true even for the people who were audited for the first time in this instance. They're learning lessons in terms of when you get to go through that, because it's more methodical, it's at a slower pace than what happens on election night. And so I think it's combination of that confidence piece. And we did have people, observers at some of the audits who got to see and watch the audit process. But the other part is just the learning opportunity for the counties to be able to look at their processes from a different light. And I know talking to some of those who are audited, this was a really useful tool for them to be able to go back to their staff and say, hey guys, here's some areas that we can work on. And I think we have some recommendations we'll be following up. Specifically, I'll note Valley County, you'll see that was the largest variance. I spoke to the Valley County clerk and we will be circling back with them. And because of there was the notations when you look at the report, talk about just the organization, we may audit further in that instance to just because I think it's more about organization than anything else. That was really what our findings were.
Is there any quick check on the night of the election to just the aggregate number of ballots cast matched to the signatures on the book? Because I noticed the one in one of the counties, you know, they did not have 9 people sign in. Why is that not a quick catch on election night? Do you reconcile the signatures to the aggregate number of ballots?
Checks, it's worth noting that because the amount of work that is happening in a very, very, very small window of time. Because when you think towards November, I can say with certainty we'll have over 800,000 ballots cast and 800,000 check-ins. And so it's just the amount of work done. That's where the canvas, that's why we're doing this canvas today, is it gives time after the election for us to both, for the counties to review their work. And there were things that counties reported to us, as well as our group to go through and look at this to lead up to today's meeting where we're going to canvass the result. Yeah. All right.
Notice the laughter.
And that's why that is one of the things we look in the audit is for exactly that reason, for the very reason you're saying it. Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
Maybe just one last question.
Oh yeah, please.
Did you as the Secretary of State, your team learn or see something different from the 2022 cycle?
Ooh. I think I will say there's learning opportunities all across the board. I do think there were things that we, in terms of organization, that we trained for with the counties leading up to this election, knowing from lessons from the last audit. I think in this cycle, one of the good things, you know, that you'll note the audit report there, it's more detailed in this instance. And I think that really is a credit to Dan, who put a lot into it. The selection process adjustments, the bringing in the accountants, those are all examples of improvements based on lessons learned. And we saw that. He noted in his presentation just the accountants having them in there. We had representatives from the political parties in the past who would be very engaged, and many of them still talk about their participation. But after like 3 hours of auditing, you kind of get glazed over. And so having people willing and Controller Wolf, I want to credit you. Thank you for the Canyon County audit for sending 4 of your team members, your 4 accountants from your office to work through it. That really makes a difference. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dan. One of the things, because the significance of the audits, I know it is a big lift for all of the counties who do these audits to go through the process. It certainly brings angst. I think I got to see that or talk to people at various points. I think it's really important, going to the question that you asked, Controller Wolf, recognizing like this is important. Election integrity is important. The security and accuracy of our elections is important. I know, Madam Treasurer, I've heard you speak to that in previous Canvas things. And so one of the things we want to do is just recognize all those counties who participated in the audit for the work that they did. And so if we can just quickly, we'll try to get through these quickly, but have each of the counties come up. We have a plaque just so that you can, so that when you're responding to public, you can say, look, we've been through this. Here are the findings of our audit and the work that we do. So real quickly, I want to have each person bring up and we'll take a quick picture if that sounds good. And so I'm going to start off with Bannock County. Jason. You guys, would you like to yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Canyon County is here, right? So Fremont. And Brandon, you can grab Payette. Is Lindsay here? Payette County. All right, Lindsay's not here. We'll get Lindsay her back. Glenda did not make the trip, right? Boundary County is not here. Joe Larson, Cassia County.
Scared it all out.
I think the audits may have worn them out. That's what we're finding out. They missed the clerk's meeting. Madison is definitely here. Kim, come on. In here. Yes. Last but not least, Doug, please come up. Thank you, guys. And I apologize to those of you watching online that we couldn't move the camera so you could see our photo opportunities. All right, now let's get to the results. I want to have Gabe Osterhout. You want to come up? And Gabe, I'm going to have you move just maybe out front in terms of space. I'll help. You can help make sure I navigate properly. Close this. And you want the mic? Sure. I can speak to it and you can. So let me make sure I'm sharing first before we get going. So those online can see. Well, yeah. One of the things that we just wanted to share with you and with the clerk. So Gabe Osterhout is our data visualization specialist. This is a new position in the Secretary of State's office. He's the one who takes all the results. He either does the data analytics and review to assemble our findings and our reports. But also he's the one who makes things just look pretty and accessible to the public. Really going to access to information. One of the things I asked him to touch base on briefly is for this election, we launched a beta election results reporting page to kind of expand how we're sharing results on election night. I think that goes, Madam Treasurer, to your question about how do you get more information out quickly. And so I just briefly wanted Gabe to touch on, I'm going to pull it up as he talks to what he was able to do with this, but it's just for everyone to see how we've taken steps to upgrade how we share this information with the public.
So,
Stand close.
as Secretary McGrain mentioned, we have this new tool. We did have the old results website still available for folks who still enjoy kind of the traditional experience. And I know a lot of county folks having kind of that individual county page is still valuable. But this was kind of a fun project for us. I believe this is the first time that in Idaho we've had live election result maps available on election night. The website had, I think we had about 400 races that were updating every few minutes on the website, along with the automated site that everyone's used to. We had all the statewide races and then all the countywide races. So we just didn't have precinct committeemen and we didn't have the ballot measures, but maybe that's, obviously we won't have precinct in November, but I think there's a lot of things that, how do we make it more comprehensive in November? So for 400 races and about 320 of them had a map available on there, and most of those are precinct. Now, as the counties know, like the data availability, some kind of report precinct results on election night, some a few days later as part of this canvas process. So this is just something we hope that, the public, as they are kind of following election results, wondering where the votes are coming in from, where candidates are doing well, where they're not, was kind of a fun thing to put together and hopefully is useful. It's still, as Secretary McGrain shows, still available on our website. It's results.voteidaho.gov. So if you use the website on election night or using it now and you have feedback, let us know. It's something we're hoping to keep improving for November. But it's just one more tool in our toolbox of hopefully increasing transparency in our elections.
Okay, and then shifting gears, I don't know, do you want to talk about the turnout? Pull up.
Okay, so now that we have the canvas back, and I know we're going to talk about the actual canvas reports here in a second. As part of that process, all 44 counties submit to us voting statistics in addition to the race results. So for every precinct in the county, they give us election day registrants, the total number of registrants, ballots cast, and voter turnout. And we go through and meticulously double check all those numbers compared to what we have, and make sure all the formulas are right, make sure that turnout's being calculated correctly. And that's the more data intensive part. And then the fun part is now that we have the numbers, being able to visualize them. And so here we have a new dashboard that just went live on our website this morning that is open to the public. That basically, if you don't want to go through a 100-page report that explains those numbers in each precinct, if you just want to look at them on a map, you can do so on voteidaho.gov on our data and dashboards page. And so you can view turnout by county. Is this view here? You can change the color by turnout or ballots cast, registered voters. But in addition to county, you can also look at turnout by legislative district, and you can also look at turnout by at the precinct level. And then if you want to filter down by county or legislative district, once you're on the precinct tab, you can actually see what parts of the counties and legislative districts had the highest turnout and which ones had lower. And so as part of the kind of canvas process and the actual results that we're about to talk about, this is something that as the counties are sending us results, we're kind of comparing to what was given up to us on election night and really working with every county to make sure that everything lined up just perfectly. So yeah, we're excited to have that new tool available.
I think one of the things that is particularly neat for the election nerds like myself, I know that lots of people follow turnout and want to know. I know Kyle from the Capital Sun has delved into this, but here you can go to the ultimate granular level, right? The darker the green, the higher the turnout in parts of the state. Now, in some cases, that's because there's not very many voters to choose from. But you can kind of drill in and see this information both at a county level. And it's interesting too, because going back just to the county piece, it highlights too where you can see there's local issues that sometimes might drive out. It's not just the top of the ticket. Sometimes it's a local bond or levy that has a big impact. I see Brenda's shaking her head that that's Lemhi County here. I think they finally passed a school bond. Is that correct? Finally passed a school bond. It's like a 20-year effort. But you can kind of see all this data. Just to highlight, Gabe mentioned the new page, and I know Mr. Controller, because you have your version with Transparent Idaho. In addition to the maps that make it pretty, we've got the bar charts, but also the downloadable data. So for the people who want to do it themselves and who want to see it in granular detail, Gabe has made all this information available to the public. Now, I just want to shift gears to the real heart of the meeting to make sure we get everything covered in time. I'm going to navigate through on here, but I'll let Gabe go over. So leading up to today's meeting, 7 days after, so by the Tuesday following the election, 7 days after, each of the 44 counties was required by law to canvass their results at a county level, and then submit that county canvass to us at the state. That county canvass was what we based our audits on that we talked about earlier. Now what we're doing is this is the culmination. So specifically for the state level races. So for this election, we have the federal races. We have the legislative races at a state level. That's what we're from, as well as the judicial races. So the judiciary. County level and below, any of those local issues were canvassed at the local level. But today our obligation is to hit all of those that cross county boundaries, those races. And so Gabe has been working at a very fine tooth comb. So I know in the past we've had the giant binder. I've sent it to each of you digitally. I'll navigate through. You have the voting statistics for all of the precincts across the state. It's a little over 500 pages worth of information. So I spared the trees and you from having to carry it. But I'm going to let Gabe go over what he did in terms of the canvas.
Yeah, so in addition to what we were just talking about with having the voting stats as kind of part of the canvas, also having all of the state races, so the congressional races, the legislative races, and the judicial races, each county reported each statewide candidate's vote total in each precinct to our office. And so it was really a lot of, kind of automated checking between what's an election night reporting, and also a lot of manual checking to make sure all the totals aligned. And so it's a these numbers were confident or accurate, right? They're numbers that a lot of them we get the vote totals, and then the counties tell us what precincts they came from, and double checking all of the calculations ourselves to make sure everything lines up the way we'd expect. So the results we have here are official ones.
So just real quick to show you a couple of things. So we've broken it up into 4 different reports just to the size, because we know people's interest. So we have what you have here is the summary report. This gives you your, as you can see, the number of registrations. This is the turnout question that was just discussed. I know at the heart of it. So we have a report for the congressional races at the federal level, outlining the candidates in many instances. Again, I know you know this, but for anybody's sake, this was a partisan primary. So for every race, there was multiple parties that would have candidates, and we present each of those individually based on the party ballot that was presented. Similarly, we have the information for all of the legislative races, so the Senate and both House seats, and the candidates and information. And this is all, again, at a precinct level. In addition to each precinct and each county, you can look at any race and see the total votes and what candidates received in those races. I will note the race that stands out in this election, I know you're already aware, but is District 30, the House seat. It's notable for 2 reasons. One is just how close it was. We anticipate, so one of the things is the canvas today, once the results are official, that's what triggers the opportunity for a recount. There can't have it yet. We anticipate a request for a recount today. It's noteworthy for 2 reasons. In addition to being close, this was an instance where the canvas process that everyone's going through, that review and the proofing that Gay mentioned, that we identified that there was a small discrepancy in terms of the results that had been posted. So it was a data entry error. Butte County does hand count of their ballots and enters that information. And in the case of Butte County, there just 1 digit had been off. So originally it looked like it was 10 votes apart. After it was corrected, it was 2 votes apart. And so with that, that also triggers a free recount because it's within that margin of 0.1% of 1% or 5 votes. And so we are anticipating a recount in that specific race. There are no other races at a state level that we're anticipating a recount. We do have some local recounts for county commissioner seats and some precinct committee seats that are taking place. And then finally, we have a report, same as the others, that details out the judicial races. Now, these are the least exciting or eventful ones because they're uncontested this go around. So any questions?
Question back on the recount, in the sense it's where it's under the threshold or within that threshold, what's the proper terminology there, from what statute allows and it's within that. Is the Secretary of State's office going to trigger that, or do one of the candidates have to do that, or what, is there a proper order or direction that you take there?
Good question. It used to be in the past that it would be automatically triggered. Now it does require a candidate to specifically request it. So I've spoken to both of the candidates in the race. The request goes to the Attorney General's office, and then we will assist the Attorney General's office. Attorney General Labrador and I have spoken about it, so they're already anticipating it, and we've already started to look at scheduling, knowing that a request will be coming in because it's such a close margin. Any other questions?
Were there any other
Close.
or any
Briefing.
questions, or maybe these guys know more than we would too?
There are some county commission races that are close, because we do know we have some that are within 5 votes and that there will be recounts. Similarly, I actually think that part of the reason the Canyon County Clerk isn't here is he's preparing for some local precinct committee recounts. That normally hasn't been quite as exciting, but this go around throughout much of the state, there were very, very competitive precinct committee races. And so that's certainly playing into things here as well. All right. Any other questions? All right. If I may, I'd like to entertain a motion to certify the results. Oh,
Mr. Secretary, your motion. I move.
yes.
Adopt and certify the candidate.
I second.
All right. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to certify the abstract? Or you sorry.
Mr. Chair, certify the complete abstract of all votes cast within Idaho's 44 counties from the May 21st, 2024 primary election.
I'll second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And Mr. Secretary, for a motion, I move that the board accept the audit report for the May 21st, 2024 primary election.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving the audit report, state by say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The ayes have it. Thank you for I think that, yes, we do. We will sign here we do have accepting the official canvas of the results. So we'll go through that.
It's blue.
Okay, good. Yes. It works. Thank you for making the trek. Thank you all for participating again in the most well-attended state canvass ever. And I think it's really important, especially in this era, so much work goes in with all of the counties, all the election administrators throughout the state, and probably most notably too, all of our poll workers who volunteer their time to work at all our polling locations. So it is awesome to see all of this work come together. So I want to thank all of those who ran the election. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the work that you do for all the voters in the state of Idaho. And thank you, fellow board members. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Let me grab this part. No, you're good.